Republicans have 1 week to try to pick a new leader, but Kevin McCarthy's ouster sending shockwaves across the country and putting all the 2024 GOP candidates on the spot.
I stand with Speaker McCarthy. Look, it's a very tough job.
I was one of the guys that opposed McCarthy before it was cool. Now you're in a situation where they haven't produced results, and that's just the reality.
The point of removing the House Speaker was to sow chaos. But the real question to ask, let's get to the bottom of it, is whether chaos is really such a bad thing.
Well, let me say that chaos is never America's friend.
It's not helpful, and certainly doesn't help us focus on the issues that everyday voters care about.
Okay, so joining us this morning, Democratic strategist Basil Smikle and Republican strategist Susan Del Percio. We just heard a real range of responses from the Republican candidates. There's some very strongly defending McCarthy, others very critical of him. Here's how the Wall Street Journal's editorial board put it. A band of 8 Republicans succeeded in ousting Kevin McCarthy as House Speaker on Tuesday, and we trust they're happy. They now have the chaos they wanted, though it isn't clear what else they hope to achieve. Their clever plan seems to be to cut off their own heads. Susan, how do the presidential candidates who want to lead this party answer to that?
Well, so far they haven't done it very well. They need to really explain to the American public the importance of governance and what they're willing to do now. They don't want to talk about it because it talks about, you need to talk about compromise. And that's something they're afraid to talk about now. But it is the key to moving our government forward. And, that Wall Street editorial was something, and it was all spot on, because the problem is those 8, and there's a few more, they really don't care about power or being in the majority. They like chaos. It doesn't matter where they're sitting. They just want the chaos.
And so when you look at not only the White House race, but really you think about control of both chambers in the next election, that's a big deal, right? Basil, I mean, is the message here that voters, Americans can't trust Republicans to govern given the chaos?
Well, you don't have to take a Democrat's word for it. Listen to what Republican members of the House who were in that meeting yesterday said. Let me go to the glasses. This is Representative Comer said they had no plan. Representative Davidson, we have no path forward for governance. They are literally saying this after they ousted their incumbent speaker. And what's interesting from a sort of larger electoral standpoint, McCarthy was a massive fundraiser for these Republican candidates. There were 18 Republican members that represent Biden won seats. 6 of them are in New York. That's McCarthy's influence in Republican politics. So when you start to peel the layers back and realize that what they did was actually throw out a guy who actually helped them get to the majority in the first place without a plan forward, that to me says, to Susan's point, they have no plan for governance. They don't understand how to do it. And then even in asking Democrats to help them out shows you the kind of desperation that we're talking about.
I mean, on one hand, you're hearing from Republicans, like, we don't want to work with Democrats at all. We have the majority in the House. We need to do this amongst each other, but they won't, as you point out, won't even compromise within their own caucus. Susan, do you think that the demands, the desires of the 8 Republicans who voted to oust Speaker McCarthy are realistic in any way? And will they get what they want in a new speaker?
Absolutely not. They cannot be moved off of this position. And let's be clear, the member of Congress with the most votes for speaker is actually Hakeem Jeffries. His whole conference is really behind him. And that was made clear. These 8 will not be able to support anyone from their caucus. They'd rather have chaos again. What probably needs to happen, and is unlikely, is that you need to have about 100 members from each side, from the problem solvers caucus, those moderates, say, let's come up with a plan, because you're going to have to give Democrats something. Democrats are not going to go along for nothing.
What do you think the voters want, though? I come back to,
well, if
Republicans think that it's in their best interest to do what they've done in order to keep power in the House, is this going to get them that?
Well, this would, and potentially, if they did a power sharing agreement similar to what the Senate had the first 2 years of the Biden administration, think about all the bipartisan legislation they got there. So that deal would have an equal number of D's and R's on every committee, but a Republican chairing every committee. and then a shared resource. Now that's a good get from the Democrats. I don't know why they would take any less than that. Maybe you can think of something.
Well, let me before you weigh in, I want to make sure we get to this too, because this is kind of interesting. At least 2 Republican members of Congress, and we're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene and Joy Nell, say they're going to back Trump for Speaker. He did weigh in on that this morning. Take a listen.
Would you take the job? A lot of people have asked me about it. I'm focused, with leading, I don't know you, I'm sure you don't read too much in the papers, but with leading by like 50 points for president. My focus is totally on that. If I can help them during the process, I would do it.
So, Basil, the Speaker of the House does not have to be a member of Congress. Does this have any legs?
No, it doesn't have any legs. And I would tell you, if anything, even remotely similar to a Donald Trump or anybody else that actually ascends to that position or is even in the running, I think you'd see a mass exodus from the House by Republicans. I mean, it's just a ridiculous statement for anybody to sort of even float that. But it really does show you, and owing to a word I said earlier, desperate. The Republicans are without a plan, without real succession plan for leadership. They're in a situation where I don't see how they retain majority in the House or the Senate, whatever chance they had for that in 2024.
Basil Smikle and Susan Del Percio.